Margaret Hoover is with us as well. She's a former campaign staffer for President Bush and former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. And she is the great-granddaughter of President Herbert Hoover.
How about that?
That's great. That's
long
great.
business card.
I am the great-granddaughter of President O'Brien.
You are. This election may actually not change the balance of power in the Senate anyway. In fact, Indiana was trending red anyway. Republicans likely wouldn't have lost the seat. They likely probably still won't lose the seat. So in terms of Republicans hitting their 50-51 mark and taking back the Senate, this race in and of itself, the broader context of the Senate probably
where it's going to change is you're going to have a Murdoch, is that Murdoch.
Should we draw a chart?
Right. That's going to change something to begin with. And it's not a given that the Republicans are going to win a seat now. I mean, Joe Donnelly has got a pretty good shot.
Well, he certainly got an okay shot. Indiana is still trending red. Yeah, President Obama's approval ratings are down in Indiana.
Obama won Indiana.
Trending red doesn't mean hard red.
Right. And he barely won Indiana.
The title of your piece is Wake Up Democrats, You Could Lose, and I want to read a little chunk of it. It's on CNN.com op-ed. You think that Democrats around the country are going to win, as I hear time and time again from the people on the street. Democratic fundraisers, activists, supporters, even politicians alike have somehow collectively lapsed into the sentiment that the president is going to be reelected and that we have a good shot to take back the House and hold the Senate. I ask, what are you smoking? What are you drinking? What are you snorting? Or just what the H are you thinking? Look around. My kids watch the show. Look around the world. Do you see any governments or incumbents winning any elections out there? So you agree with the incumbent issue, clearly.
Of course I do. In the United States, look, the incumbents got wiped out in 2008. They got wiped out in 2010. They're getting wiped out here. You go to Europe. You go to anywhere. Why would a political party that is in power, that's tied and opposed, that's not raising as much money as the other party in any way, shape, or form? And Democrats tell me this all the time. Oh, man, Obama's going. We're going to be all right, aren't we?
Don't you think, though? Don't you think that confidence?
What was that noise? What was that?
I'm sure closed caption is going, how do I say
Go ahead, Margaret.
But the question is, was the source of that sound that you just made and that overconfidence potentially the fact that during the primary season, which frankly even Republicans admit became a bit of a circus, it ended up discrediting and hurting the brand of the Republican Party, 20-plus debates. For the Democrats who were paying attention, it was easy to become overconfident.
It was just delightful.
But the reality is the majority of Americans weren't watching during the presidential primary season. They tune in August and September when there are nominees of both parties, and that's when most Americans who vote, 50% of them, show up and start paying attention. Mr. Murdoch, Margaret Hoover here. A follow-up question. You know, many people have likened Jim DeMint and the Tea Party to not compromising in the Senate. And what would you say? I want to give you an opportunity to respond. What would you say when people criticize you as saying that you don't understand the nature of the institution you're running to represent, the Senate, which is really premised on the notion of compromising with your colleagues?
Well, I'm a huge student of American history, and I recognize that this is one of those times where there is great polarization between the two parties. And frankly, the ideas for which the parties are working are really at opposite ends of the spectrum. I don't think there's going to be a lot of successful compromise. Hence, you have the deadlock we have today. What I've said about compromise and bipartisanship is I hope to build a conservative majority in the United States Senate so that bipartisanship becomes Democrats joining Republicans to roll back the size of government, reduce the bureaucracy, lower taxes, and get America moving again. So the stimulus plan hasn't worked.
As I understand the Tea Party, they don't want representatives to compromise on their fiscal principles. Obviously, at the end of the day, some of this negotiation tweaking in the weeds in the legislation is going to have to happen. That's what Senator Bradley did in the Tax Reform Act in 1986, which was his major legislative achievement. I mean, at the end of the day, you had your principles, other people come to the table with their principles, and then you work out the details sort of at the end of the day. But you come with your principles, and I think that's what Richard
Martin is trying to say. There's a question in there somewhere for you, and I'll let you have the final word, sir. I mean, I wonder, is it principles versus getting stuff done? Does getting stuff done mean eventually you just have to give up on your principles?
No, I mean, you have to be who you are. You have to have strong principles. At the same time, the way you get things done is you have to compromise. Just take a look at the Tea Party versus Occupy. Tea Party had a very specific objective, which is roll back government. They decided to go into electoral politics. They elected 43 people to the Congress, and those people, during the debt limit, almost bankrupted this country. On the other hand, you have Occupy that had a lot of passion, had a good slogan, we're the 99%, but chose not to have a specific objective or to get into electoral politics. Unless you have your hands on the levers of power, which is the Congress and the presidency, your passion is not going to work. Look at what happened, last point, in the 1960s. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream, had a moral force, and drove the civil rights revolution. His partner in that being realized, that dream being realized, was a crafty politician named Lyndon Johnson who knew how to compromise.
Time to talk about the papers this morning. Oh, it's all about the panel. Well then, carry on, panel. What's in the papers that you noticed? Margaret, we'll start with you as our newcomer's honor.
Well, I'm going USA Today, below the fold. Thank God. I was told to go light, by the way. But TV remotes are getting smarter, which means you'll have voice recognition systems in them. You can talk to your remote control. You can fight with your husband. You don't have to find the remote control if it's under all those papers. There it is. So not that I fight with my husband about this, but God, it'll be a lot easier.
We should point out her husband is CNN contributor John Avalon, so you folks at home can just picture that fight.
Plus, he's Mr. Independent, so he believes in compromise. So he'll probably say, yes, baby, the right area.
I stick by my principles. I don't need to compromise.
Playlist, literally everything she's put on, I like. Notice I got nothing on today, but everything you put on, fantastic. That's Joe Cocker feeling all right. It's time for Endpoint. We're going to start with Roland Martin today.
Suzanne Summers talked about improving your health, and she said, you know, stress is one of the issues. I'm a firm believer. If you just cuss people out on a regular basis, you will not have stress. It will open the pores up. You will feel better. Blood pressure will be lower. You'll be all good.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one, but
just saying. I mean, you're not carrying stuff around. You're not walking around upset.
I'm fairly confident Suzanne Summers did not say that.
Trust me, it's in the book.
Suzanne Summers said she can visualize her endpoint. I asked her right when the segment was over, when will your endpoint be? How old will you be, Suzanne? She said 110 at least.
Yeah, I can get my mind around 110. Unbelievable.
I can get my mind around late 90s.
Yeah.
I think I could get to 99.
I'm thinking 150.
I just don't want to lose my mind at that age. So it really doesn't matter.
All right, Margaret, we're going to get to your endpoint on the other side of this commercial break. We're back in a moment. Before we let you go, let's get to Margaret's endpoint.
Well, I think what we had is, you know, when you have the immigration dust up, the Mitt Romney potential etch-a-sketch moment again, but really this sort of plays into this narrative that Romney doesn't know where he is, but he does know where he is. He said where he is on immigration, but that matters because of Latino votes. Can Republicans get back what Bush had in 2004, a 40% win on Latino votes?
Nope.
And we don't know about it.